For the year 2020, I'm making a video review for every new movie I watch, whether in theaters or at home, and on June 27th, I watched A Hard Day's Night. Welcome to my year in movies. This is Talking to Myself. So, when given the option to listen to boy bands from the 60s, I usually chose the Monkees. I was a big fan of the television show, and I tended to like their music a lot more. I really enjoyed Michael Nesmith and Davy Jones in particular. Fun fact, Davy Jones is one of the two members of Tiny Cowboy in the episode of Phineas and Ferb about Meatloaf. It's really good. But I never was really a Beatles person. I didn't think they were underrated or overrated. I figured they were probably just rated, about to the level of acclaim that they deserved given the contributions they made. But when it came to their music, I generally preferred the Beatles separate, except for John Lennon because I don't like the song Imagine. But I really enjoyed like George Harrison's solo career. Ringo Starr has a couple of really great songs, but as a whole, we weren't a Beatles household. A lot of our music tastes came from later bands, who of course were influenced by the Beatles, but we just didn't acknowledge them. So when my sister started getting into Beatles memes, she started getting into Beatles lore, and then started getting into Beatles music. And so for her birthday, I'd gotten her a copy of A Hard Day's Night on DVD. Finally, after 6 months of being without my family, I got to have them all over and we got to watch A Hard Day's Night. And my sister is a big fan of the Beatles.
You know a lot about the Beatles. You know, like, tons of it.
Part of how I know that is when I looked over while we were watching the movie, she was like scrolling through her phone's pictures, and 60% of the picture folders were just pictures of the Beatles. And during the course of the movie, I was like, Paul's kind of cute. Ringo's cute. I like Ringo. And it's like, oh my gosh, are the Beatles cute? And then we keep watching and we'd hear them play their music and it'd be like, oh my gosh, are the Beatles talented? Like they harmonize and stuff in their music? That is my one critique with like a lot of boy bands today, and just like the overall vibe that later boy bands had is that they didn't harmonize, because I think if you have multiple vocalists and you're not harmonizing, that's just a sin. And then like they were charming and funny and they looked good, and I was like, oh my gosh, are the Beatles good? And then we turned off the movie, we went about our lives. Oh my gosh, do I like the Beatles? And so I texted her and I was like, I have looked up 8,000% more Beatles photos, and I think I have a crush on Paul, and it's your fault. And she is very, very proud of herself for getting me to this point. And then for hours, we started sending them back and forth. But in all seriousness, this is an effective way to bring in new people to the Beatles. I am a firm believer that the purpose of musical biopics is not really to tell the story of any musician. It is to sell records. It is to sell albums. It's to sell music. Because I am not the kind of person who goes out and willingly exposes myself to music. I like having it packaged and delivered with like, this is the best. This is where you should start. Because otherwise, I don't know where to begin. But here we were, and I was looking up Beatles pictures. I was interested, I was listening to their music, and the movie is to blame for that, and by proxy my sister is as well. To illustrate how much more of a problem this is and how my brain works, when I discover something new that I like, I have to suck every bit of information out about it as I possibly can. So I went to my local used bookstore and I got a Beatles biography, literally the biggest one I could find, because summer is for thick non-fic. But yeah, so what made A Hard Day's Night such an effective film for converting me to Beatlemania? And part of it is, it may have just been the right time for me, because I am currently 23. In the course of filming A Hard Day's Night, 3 out of 4 of the Beatles were 23. George was still 20, I believe. Part of what made the movie so charming is they are my age, and so I am finally in the demographic that gets the band. And so getting to see them be funny and in their element and be charming and musical was really effective. It's not a biopic by any means, but I do think it kind of dramatizes and creates not quite a farce out of a typical day in the life of what was the biggest rock band at the time. And so we get to see them being mobbed by girls, we get to see them create hijinks on a train, they are performing, they're, going about their day-to-day, doing interviews, and kind of struggling to some degree with what fame means and what it looks like and stuff. And so having it packaged in such a neat, clean-cut production is really nice, I have to say. It does a good job of bringing you in and making them feel like friends, despite the fact that this movie came out really soon after their first performance in America, I believe, and it just sort of took off in a huge way. This humanized them way more than anything I had ever seen them ever did. It's kind of weird to think about how it could humanize them when in some ways it's creating more of a facade, but it reminded me that, yeah, they weren't 30. They weren't 25. They were kids at this point, basically. I can't imagine being confronted with that much fame that fast and being this age. And like, I like to think of myself as being fairly well adjusted, but there's no way. And so being able to see it all in the course of 24 hours, it was really neat. And I'm still a little confused as to how it humanizes them that much, but it did, and it's charming. I've said that word so many times, but that is the best word for it, I think. It lets them be funny and handsome and flirtatious and fun, and it was really good. I enjoyed it. And I didn't think of myself as being a Beatles person, and here we are. That being said, I have so much music to catch up on. And I will say, if you are not into a popular thing right now, that's totally fine. Sometimes the mood isn't right, just as it was with this. But now that I'm into it, I am going to learn literally everything I can, because that's just how I am. If you ask me about the film Grease, I will tell you way more than you need to know, because I learned way too much about that film. I'm a leech when it comes to new things, and this is going to be no different.
Who's your favorite Beatle?
Ringo.
Who's your favorite Beatle?
Either Paul or Ringo, because they play the more down to earth instruments. Guitarists are kind of full of themselves.
What?
And just for some fun random things, my definitive ranking of the Beatles for myself personally are Ringo, Paul, George, and John. Paul has the prettiest eyes. He has really long eyelashes. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your definitive Beatles ranking is and what your favorite Beatles song is. For a long time, the only one that I really liked was Eleanor Rigby, which is weird given Ringo's not on it at all, but I really liked Eleanor Rigby. But now I really enjoy I Only Want to Dance With You and I Love Her and Can't Buy Me Love. Those are also really good. But yeah, I'll be sure to check back in after I've read the absolute massive book about them, because that's just how I am. And I'll hopefully will have spliced in some comments from my brother and sister about the film as well. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it pre-Beatles conversion. So I think even if you're not a huge Beatles person, I think you would also enjoy it, because it's just quick, it's fun, it's got lots of cool music, and it's really high energy, and I like that a lot. So it's certainly worth checking out if you haven't already. Please do. This one's been all over the place. I'm so out of practice. But in all seriousness, this was a good movie. I did enjoy it, and I may never forgive my sister for converting me. Now I gotta send her more Paul pictures. All right, this has been My Year in Movies. Thank you for watching.